Hello and welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us today. We are gathered here today to share inspiring stories and practical lessons about the impact of successful collaborations between startups and corporates. During the next hour, we will hear from Anabel Perez, President and CEO of NovoPayment, Alvaro Echeverria, co-founder and CEO of SimpliRoute, and Juan Carlos Costales, Venture Capital Manager for Cemex Ventures, about how startup corporate collaborations have evolved over time, the strategies that each used to build these relationships, and what impact these partnerships are having in the regions, and how can this become win-win-win relationships. If you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to post them in the chat box at any moment. We will have some time to answer your questions at the end of your session, where we expect your active participation and encourage you to be part of this open conversation. The webinar is brought to you by a joint collaboration between TheVentureCity and IDB LAB, and will be moderated by Laura González Estefani and Irene Arias Hoffman. Laura González Estefani is the founder and CEO of TheVentureCity, a venture accelerator designed to make the global entrepreneurial ecosystem more diverse, international, and accessible to fair capital. Her work extends across Europe, Latin America, and the US, with campuses in Miami and Madrid, as well as offices in San Francisco and Sao Paulo. An early employee of Facebook, Laura spent 9 years supporting the platform's growth initiatives in Silicon Valley, Miami, Spain, and Portugal. Prior to Facebook, Laura held management roles at eBay and Siemens, and co-founded Esplaya.com, the first beach tourism digital platform in Spain in 2000. Irene Arias Hoffman is the CEO of IDB LAB, the innovation laboratory of the Inter-American Development Bank Group, the leading source of development finance for Latin America and the Caribbean. The purpose of IDB LAB is to drive innovation for inclusion for supporting early-stage entrepreneurial solutions capable of transforming the lives of vulnerable populations. Previously, Irene worked for 20 years at the IFC, the private sector arm of the World Bank Group, where she managed the Financial Institutions Group and also the Latin American and Caribbean region, with its $16 billion portfolio. Her focus has been on innovation and technology, venture capital, and organizational development. Now, without further ado, we will turn the time to Irene and Laura to start this conversation.
Irene, I think that one of the things that we always do when we are together is that we make every conversation very interactive, and we learn a lot from each other. This has been kind of like one of those things that since day one that we met each other, and being in completely different worlds, somehow in my side more from the entrepreneurial private world, and in your side more from the institutional that makes things happen for our world. I think that today, thank you, Juan Carlos, Super Anabel, and Super Alvaro. I am saying super because these guys are entrepreneurs, and today is very, very hard to be an entrepreneur, for joining us. And we hope we can make this conversation authentic and interactive and real, because I guess that a lot of the people that are listening to us today are tired of webinars and Zooms and stuff. And I guess that they also want to learn very tactical ways to make collaborations happen. So Irene, all yours.
Bueno, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, wherever you are. Thank you for Laura for this first opportunity to launch our collaboration. We've been partnering for a while, but I think today is particularly special because we I think indeed are seeing a huge need in the region to make collaboration between startups and corporates easier. Latin America and the Caribbean is one region where that's mostly needed because without productivity, there's no growth and no equal opportunities. And I think we can create something really, really important here. So I'm really looking forward to learning a lot from Alvaro, Anabel, and Juan Carlos. Let's just get started. I think, Laura, you're going to launch with the first question, so please go ahead.
Yes, yes. So I think that the first question that we all have is kind of like how, coming from different worlds, the corporate world, such as yours, Juan Carlos, or maybe Anabel, your past world before building your own business, and the world that you guys represent today, Alvaro, and Anabel, startups that are changing the dynamics of pre-existing industries. A lot of the people that is listening to us, and even Irene and myself, as members of this ecosystem, really want to learn tactically what really makes things stick and really collaborate so that everyone can feel happy about all the efforts put together and about the next path forward. So for me, the first thing, very quickly, I wanted to share from the venture kind of like investing world how we view this collaboration very fast. I think it's more needed than ever, than corporate venture capitals or corporates and startups partner, and bring true innovation to our ecosystem and our countries in Latin America and the Caribbean. Reason behind is because sadly, because of these crises that we are facing, first health crisis and now also economic downturn, we are seeing that the venture capital world or the alternative capital world is kind of like on hold if you are an early stage company with a brilliant idea. But the corporates have something amazing that we tend to forget as entrepreneurs, which is that they've been entrepreneurs before. They've tested a lot. They're used to test different things, and they have the easy way to go to market. So with this little intro, I wanted to somehow ask you, and you tell me who wants to answer first. What is the partnership, the collaboration, or the corporate that you've been the most excited about because you've been able to accomplish great things together, and what were the key ingredients to really make that such successful? Who wants to start?
Well, I can start.
Okay, super, Anabel.
Okay, thank you for inviting me to this panel. Good morning, everyone. I'm Anabel Perez, co-founder and CEO of NovoPayment. We are a financial and payment and service enablement company. We support incumbents and disruptors across 13 markets. And we have been, I believe, pretty successful building different type of partnership across the region. In particular, I would like to mention one that we consider very mature, one with Visa. Initially started as a technical collaboration partnership that then evolved into a commercial collaboration partnership and ended last year in an investment through their venture corporate vehicle, Visa Venture. Basically the main foundation of our partnership, as I mentioned, initiated in a technical collaboration agreement, because we both understood that we needed to collaborate in order to solve problems. That was the basic of the partnership, and because technically our respective platform were able to work perfectly together, that helped us to craft a commercial strategy in order to approach the market in different countries and start to implement our joint solution.
Yeah, maybe I can continue that because I agree with Anabel what it says. To the people listening, I'm Alvaro, CEO of SimpliRoute. SimpliRoute is a SaaS platform that helps transportation, retailers, and e-commerce platform to make the routes on the street more efficient. Then we are talking about the key components to make this partnership works. in my experience, similar that we are doing something really good with Telefonica, for example, for a few years. And that worked really well because it came from a driver inside of the company. It's not they wanted to innovate or to innovation with a startup. That sometimes happens in some markets, that companies and big corporations, they see that this is a new trend to start doing things with a startup, and they start doing it because reasons. In this case, it wasn't the case. It was something more technical. They saw the market, they were requesting something like us, and they came from directly for the teams. The teams requested to find a solution like us. And we came through Guaira, this is the one that make the connection, and we do this particular partnership, and at the end of the day, it was a reselling program. And then from my point of view, when this work with corporation is when the two views are aligned. They have a real business problem or a commercial opportunity, and they start collaborating with the startups to start to build together something. Not the other way around, not that they want to do innovation and start looking opportunities. In that case, they are trying to force something that does have the connection inside of the company. Because in my experience also with the corporations, is that you need a key player inside of the company moving everything. Your champion, exactly. And that champion is the one that is going to allow this move forward, because it's really, sometimes it's slow and takes a lot of steps. And me as a startup, I'm not really used to make contracts and that complicate things, but he knows how to work inside of his corporation. Then that champion, when he has the right alignment, because he needs this for start increasing his sales or get a new market, is a way that moved really fast. In our case with Telefonica, in 6 months, we were selling with them, and that wasn't usual for them.
You know, one thing that you haven't mentioned, none of you, is that Alvaro, you're from Chile to the world, and Anabel, a Venezolana in Miami to the world. You haven't mentioned the amazing accomplishments that you have done. You are very humble talking about, no, we do this and we do that. And, you know, I started to collaborate with Visa, and then at the end, they ended up investing in my platform. And Alvaro, no, I started working with White, and at the end, we ended up selling together. I think, you know, you guys are a true example of, and you said it very well, when both worlds are aligned, magic happens, and happens a lot faster than it would have happened if you didn't count on those corporates, right? So I think these stories are full of inspiration for other people like Juan Carlos, that you can share with us your stories working with entrepreneurs. You guys can disagree, right? So it's not all about you can disagree. So Juan Carlos, the floor is yours.
No, the point is that I cannot be more agree with Anabel and Alvaro. But before my comments, I just introduce myself. I'm Juan Carlos Costales. I'm part of Cemex Ventures based in Monterrey, Mexico. And I'm very grateful and privileged to be here. And thank you for inviting me here. I don't know if you know that the construction sector has the lowest productivity change and digitalization index among all other sectors in the economy. So I want to highlight the importance of this panel. It is very important for Cemex because we need to keep building the innovation ecosystem together. And I want to thank IDB LAB and TheVentureCity to make it real. But my comments, okay. I think every case is different, okay? But in the corporation world, it is more different even, you know? Talking about the internal causes in order to fail or to succeed in this partnership with a startup or with whatever company, I think is the lack of internal agreement. When I see a solution in the market and I understand this solution is valuable for us to improve something in our business model or operational model, I need to convince the operation and of course the topest level of the company that there is something that could add value to us. And that probably sounds simple, but it is not, because the corporation are plenty of politics, are plenty of communication barriers, are plenty of not invented here syndrome, which is something that put a barrier in order to not to that avoid to progress with a collaboration effort. You know, this is something that we need to solve first here internally, and we need to be practically magician to be success in that part. Okay, but the other one is, as Anabel and Alvaro has mentioned, is the how to share common goals between the startup and the corporation. Probably through a testing process or whatever experiment or whatever service that this supplier is going to provide us. I think these two things, we need to be very careful with both, and we need to make the highest effort we could do in order to solve it.
If I may, I think it will be great to start asking internally some questions. Why we should be partnering, how we want to benefit our customers, what type of partner are we looking for? Because I know that corporate Spain, corporate America, corporate Latam, they have the power to build or buy. But when you partner, you bring different perspective. You bring a differentiated knowledge. You bring, most of the time, a more close view of the reality of your customers. And that's why I think partnering is so relevant. So this is my humble recommendation to make the questions and to get the answers, and then identify a simple initiative that could become an internal icon and a symbol of success that could help you to gain credibility and advance in your agenda. And of course, inform, and super inform everyone. So you continue to gain the trust of your colleagues, and of course, the opportunity to receive extra support, top down and bottom up.
Yes, yeah, that's true, because and that is why probably it caught my attention when I see the title of this panel, win, 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 you know, and which is the third win. And I totally agree with you, Anabel.
The customer.
Yeah, it's the end user,
the customer. Yeah,
if we are not aligned with this protagonist, we are going to fail. We are not going to feel that we are doing something for something, you know? Right.
Yeah, and as one was saying before, that then when this partnership works because we want to have innovation, it doesn't make any sense. We need that third win, that the people actually and the customer is seeing any value, or internally, an internal customer. Sometimes it makes sense to do innovation for myself, for my own processes, but also to the final customer. Then if you are not aligned with that, this partnership doesn't make any sense at the end of the day.
Right. So can I jump in here? I think this is, you know, partly speaking about it and speaking and showing some of the frictions or some of the internal barriers, as you put it, Juan Carlos, in larger organizations is key, because then also, you know, people who are struggling to make this happen in their own organizations can relate to it and can say, okay, it's not just me, it's not just my organization, you know, and you don't become so daunted by those constraints, and in the end, I mean, they can. But maybe if I could then go a little bit deeper and ask you, all of you, to name, you've named some successes, so maybe you can name another one, but particularly name also an experience of failure, and why do you think that happened? What did you learn from it? I think there is as much we can learn from the successes as from the failures. So who wants to jump in?
I can start. and in 2018 was a very rough year because it was practically not the first year in Cemex Venture, but it was the first year understanding what we had to do, you know? And we realized at that time that we needed to have empathy with the operation, okay? The operation has tremendous and a lot of pain points within their operational model or the commercial model with the customers, okay? We need to understand which are these priorities, okay? This is one thing. The other one is 2019 and 2020, we were doing things, we were investing, we were trying to establish some collaboration effort throughout the company. We have been a success when we have this empathy with the operation and with the operators. Forget about the topest level, that it doesn't matter if we don't match our minds each other with the operation. Well, this is one case. For example, we were trying to understand which is the best technology to measure the strength of the concrete when you put it in the structure in the building site, okay? And of course we have a very old and traditional way to break the cylinders, okay? This is one typical method by NOMS, and there was another one which was the sensors, and then we have another ones, okay? When we were talking with the operation with the sensors, the operation was not convinced that this method was good because it was plenty of logistics tasks, it was plenty of manual tasks, and the cost was not reduced as he was doing it in the previous one. And with this new method that I'm not going to mention it, but this new method, but it is similar to the method when you go to a store, okay? But with the thermometer that you have. But this new method, when they saw it, they said, this is the method that probably is more disruptive. And this is the method that my customer is gonna like. And we are now testing it with the customers. And the customer is telling us the truth, okay? If that is gonna happen or not in our customer relationships. So in conclusion, I think we need to be empathic with the operation, and then we need to involve them a lot, as much as possible.
If I may, I think, Irene, you make a great point, because when we enter, when we enter into a partnership, we need to, as I recommend to Juan Carlos, we need to make ourselves questions. Why I want this partnership? Is this partnership what brings to my company? Are we going to create value for our respective organization? Do we think we're gonna continue to build trust over time? Who are the promoter? Who could be the detractor? And more importantly, how we're going to measure success and identify the potential roadblocks that could turn that initiative into a failure. We learn through failure, and that's why entrepreneurs are successful. So partnership also needs to learn from failure. And as long as the failure do not damage our respective reputation and do not damage the pursuit of the joint value creation, I think will survive over time. Again, we do business with people, not with companies, and trust, it's everything. Trust is everything.
I also wanted to add one thing, building into what Juan Carlos was saying, and you just mentioned Anabel. At the end of the day, as we're talking about people identifying your champion, as what Alvaro was saying inside the organization, but from the top management on the corporate, I think it's also important to align objectives and goals, right? If you don't have people sharing the same goals inside and outside the organization, it's very hard that they feel accountable for the success, you know? And I remember that in the very beginning when corporates started to work with the startups, you know, they kind of like put a little team down in the corner exploring how working with a startup could look like. But there was no alignment between the strategy of the corporate with the strategy of the startup. And as you say, Juan Carlos, now when everybody understands the methodology and everyone understands why we need to work together, what's the benefit at the end for our common customers, I think is when the true partnership and potentially ends up in an investment happens. Alvaro, you were saying something?
Yeah, actually really related with what you said, because I can count, obviously not the company, but a story of a failure between working with them, because when we close the Series A, in Chile, it's not that usual that companies are doing Series A's in our earlier stage. Then we were kind of hot here in the ecosystem. Then we got a lot of press at that moment. And a lot of corporations started asking to us to get meetings and conversation with us, because we have this all data science and algorithms and machine learning things, and they saw an opportunity to interact with us. Then one particular company started working with us, and they were really interested to put our technology in some of the processes that they have. But the main issue, and after a few months of working together, is that they didn't have a real business case developed. Then they wasn't sure exactly why they want to be working with us. They were having this cool technology and trying to put it in the company because it sounded cool, more than trying to solve a real problem and look for solutions. And maybe we cannot be the solution if they look in that other way around, because it probably could be a change of the process or changing people, not really technology. Then in the use case that they were working, they want to have this cool thing and it sounds hot, and they want to put it in the company because they saw the value of having that things interacting with them. But it wasn't a real problem, or at least wasn't really defined problem. Then after a few months of working, we got to there, but it took way longer than the other experience we had, because we had to start working with them to define what they want to do. And in that cases, in my experiences, where everything fails, because I wasted a lot of energy trying to help them with a consulting scene, and it's not my thing, and trying to learn what they want to do. And after that, they were sure that, okay, this is the whole picture, and SimpliRoute can help them in this quarter. They still need to look for other things, but they were looking for a solution before the problem.
I think that's a great segue maybe to another question, which is, what can you share in terms of successful networking for corporate partnerships? What's your approach so that the next time around you anticipate that earlier and don't waste energy in those that may not be in the end successful? What can you share in terms of the successful method and models for identifying what's a good marriage or not?
I would say define your own guiding principle for partnerships. Okay, starting from, again, I want to build partnership based on trust, partnership that help us to create value. In our case, because we offer an open API financial services and payment platform, for us it's important to find ways to share securely, in a secure way, data, and how that data could help to create new products and services. So for us, it's critical as well to take that into consideration, to ensure that you're not going to waste time in that dialogue. that you will, in a short period of time, you will be able to concrete an opportunity to collaborate and work together, to build over time relationships, and importantly, that you will protect your, and they will protect respectively, respectively AP, intellectual property. Typically in partnership, you work on the same level organization or asymmetric relationship. And typically, like in our case, we're smaller than our partners. So we always work in ensuring that everything it's well established, and importantly overall, to have a clear understanding of role and responsibilities. So we don't have, we will not assume a role that was not expected, even though that could evolve over time.
If we believe that we are creating value to our company together, I think the isometric relationship is not true. Because one thing is the size of the company, that is a reality, okay? But one other thing is the size of the impact that you are producing to me, and probably this impact is huge, and I'm sure that is going to be the driver for the importance that I'm going to give you, and the respect that I'm going to have in front of you to make a much better relationship. I think so.
Yeah, totally agree with the impact. Having impact will then level up the conversation.
Yes.
In my case, what it makes critical for this relationship, as you said, Irene, at the end of the day, is that as any relationship, I don't want to give, if I'm your first boyfriend, I don't want to get married maybe, because you maybe are not sure what you want. Because, yeah, sorry to put it in the love area.
You just want a romance. You just want a romance.
Maybe it's not the best way to put it.
We all understood it. We all understood it, Alvaro.
Yeah, because, you know, maybe you are not sure what do you want, and maybe you don't understand exactly what you need. Then for sure you need a few relationships to make this work. Then
you're talking about exclusivity, right? Which is
he's saying that he preferred to start with an affair and then to formalize that.
Yeah, I'm moving this to the business side, and let me explain my analogy. Then for sure, it's a corporation that is starting to work with the startups. To be honest, I prefer to don't be the first one, because usually it's really difficult, because I had done that before. And this new corporation launched for the first time his corporate venture capital, and is doing the first time a demo day to understand startups. I have been in that, and it hasn't worked in most of the times. Sometimes yes, sometimes no, but the probability of doing something really more complicated is higher, because they are just starting to learn. Then if I'm a startup, usually I try to go with companies that has done this before, at least internally. At least if they have some maturity, at least, because everybody has to start. Obviously, is what I ask when they are hiring my services, because I am new one. They want to make the risk. But at least to try to learn a few pilots and not a full scale, all these things, trying to do something that make value. Then for me, it works. This marriage works when both of them are trying to invest things and putting high value there. As Juan Carlos said, if they see impact, they are going to put people behind to try to do this in the right way. Then if this is an isolated thing, only the chief of innovation is doing this, usually it's something that doesn't work in my experience, because he doesn't have the backup of people working with him. This innovation area has all the company aligned and working with them, is usually higher impact in my case.
I wanted to share an anecdote. You reminded me of an anecdote. So I started working for Facebook when it was a startup, when they were fundraising, and I left the company when it was already a huge corporate. And at the end of my career in the company, we used to partner a lot with the startups and with corporates. And I remember that one good practice that we used to do was that we would share at the highest level of the company what worked and what didn't work in every partnership or collaboration with a startup. So in the management team of the company, they really wanted to understand, what are we doing right? What are we not doing right? And I wonder, Juan Carlos, is this an exercise that you guys are doing at Cemex? Like really, bringing to the top of the organization the reasons why things worked and the reasons why they didn't work?
Yes, sure, sure. Once we have identified a solution or a startup that is going to add value to us, and we have considered that we need to keep working with him, we go fast to assess the solution, and we go fast to understand the expectation of the startup and how they match with us, with ours, and of course we need to try to put common goals. We need to this is probably part of my job, to trying to be a mentor with the startup. To take him to the operation world is not easy, and try to warn about what kind of things we need to do and we cannot things we don't need to do, and this is totally true what you're saying, and it is a process to create a common goal, and this is the process to create also a very solid commitment with each other, and
if I may, I like a lot what you just said, because the benefit for us of receiving mentorship, it's invaluable. One of the reasons that we love to partner is not only because not only the C-suite or other level of our organization are exposed to the culture and to the best practices of the companies that we partner with, but also it's a great opportunity to gain those mentors within those companies that at the end become your sponsors, because they believe they're willing to give you time to talk about their respective industry and how those industry will be evolving over time. And it's also a really a testament of the culture of the partner. You find that. So thank you for doing that.
And in my experience, it's a two-way road, because a lot of the C-level companies that I have been working with them, they told me that they love to be working with us because we bring to them a new view, a new way to work, that sometimes it's not a teacher. Sometimes it's the way that we work, that the way that we are more agile and we are with more higher risk decisions. They help them to start shifting the culture inside of the corporation. Then it helped me also to understand better how a big corporation works and learn from them, but also the other way around.
So Juan Carlos, so how do you look for partnerships with startups? How is the search process in the case of Cemex, and how is the search process in the case of SimpliRoute and NovoPayment? So first, Juan Carlos.
We have 6 areas already identified, and we are trying to find solutions within these categories. This is one thing. The other one is how to contact the solution where they are, which is something that is difficult. We have the first activity that we have is the startup competition. We have an annual startup competition where everybody everywhere can apply, and we are going to review the solution. We are going to assess the solution that they are posting, and we are going to evaluate in the most objective way. In this particular year, we did this startup competition with another partners, another big construction corporations. and they were helping us, and we were sharing ideas and criteria with them. It was very helpful. And the other one is how to identify some ideas internally. We have an annual internal competition. Every region in the company is posting their best ideas with the best technologies they can, and we selected the 3 or 5 best solutions to be developed within the company, or to decide which is the best strategy, because probably the solution that they are proposing is something that we can find in the market, and we prefer integrate something from the market than our own development. And the rest is doing by clicks, going through internet, going through our network of venture capital, accelerators, academies, all the actors in the ecosystem, in order to make as much contact we can, you know. And in that sense, we have been reviewing more than 1,000 companies per year. We are 14 people in the team.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huge work.
Juan Carlos, can you maybe just also mention when you talked about criteria, no, and having common criteria, and also what we also see more and more from IDB Lab working with corporate, that they are being much more collaborative with other corporates to join efforts in this type of thing. So that, I think this is great. When you come up with the criteria, how do you measure, or how do you try to get around trying to value the value that you may be able to create by partnering with this corporate, which from the discussion just before seems to be at the heart of aligning and gaining enough interest and momentum and champions within the corporate to move that forward. So how do you measure the value that it can create for you?
Yeah, sometimes it's difficult. It's not easy, because we prefer early stage startups, and sometimes we need to try to understand what is the projection that they are going to have in the near future, you know, and we need to make a bet about that. But we have identified 11 criteria, okay, in 2 blocks. The first block is the strategic one, which how this startup fit into our strategy, okay. The business where we want to work with, at least at the beginning of the phase of testing of these kind of things. And secondly is if this solution is part of the pain point already identified with the operation, in order to be empathic with them, you know, what I have mentioned previously. And the other criteria in the second block are regard to the startup capabilities. Let's say, for example, which is the ticket that we are going to invest, that is important to us, which is the quality of the governance in the startup, not only by the CEO and his team, or her team, but by the board that they have behind the company, because most of the time this is very young people not very well and long experienced people, and we and to us it's very important that they have a solid board behind them in order to give a very good advices. And another is how they are going to address the market, how clear they have the go-to-market strategy, and how scalable is the solution, and these kind of things. These are the criteria that we follow and we can measure, given some number or whatever. You know, but we don't share these evaluation criteria with the other partners in the startup competition. Everyone do the evaluation independently, and they and later we can combine the list, and the first and the top 10 is going to win. You know.
Thank you, Juan Carlos. I think that there are some similarities also in terms of how innovation happens within an institution like the IDB group, and we sort of feel a little bit sometimes like the startup within the group, and sometimes we play a different role in like that. So thank you. I think clearly that puts you in the bucket of corporates in Latin America and the Caribbean that are much more mature. I think you would pass for sure with flying colors Alvaro's test, but how do you, what the point, I think this validates also, I think Laura and the Venture Cities and IDB Labs conviction that we can come together and help by sharing this type of knowledge and also connecting better. We can help accelerate the maturity of the other corporates that have been gone through the journey that you have gone through. So thank you for that. I think it's the whole point of doing this here today.
So one comment, something that is very interesting happening right now for everybody is that we are seeing a tremendous activity in M&A happening all over the region and all over the world right now between corporates and startups. In many situations, it's happening because they started to partner together, they were happy working together, and given the situation, the startups couldn't fundraise the capital they needed, and then the corporate VC comes in and says, look, we really work together nicely, we're going to give you your freedom so that you do what you do best, and so that I do what I do best, but let's work together. We are also seeing how corporates for the first time are looking into alternative solutions and innovation outside their core because they feel that something is happening outside and they don't want to miss it. So honestly, and not because I am optimistic by design, but because I really, really feel it, there's no better moment to starting working together than now. At the same time, I wanted to share a few tactical things, okay? Because I think this is important. From my time being an entrepreneur, from my time being at Facebook when we were partnering and investing in companies, and on my time now as an entrepreneur, I think that it is very important for us to understand the stage at which that startup is. You said it very well before, Juan Carlos. You said it very well too, Alvaro. If you're in a very, very early stage, let's say seed series, the fact that you're going to start working with a corporate, it's not that the corporates are slow, it's that the pace at which you need things to get done is so much faster than a corporate can never do it. But it's not that they're slow, it's just that you need a 3-month turnaround because you're on seed stage. At the same time, another tactical thing that I think is important, we can't pretend from the corporate world to make a startup that is on a seed stage or pre-series A to set a board, because the company is in the moment of really building the pieces of the puzzle. It doesn't make sense to build a board. Either you trust or you wait and see. We have, in our company, we have a watch list of amazing companies that we really want to be kind of like close to, because we believe there's something interesting happening there, but it's not yet the right timing for us to work together. So I really feel that those people on the corporate world and those people on the startup need to fact check reality of the momentum, so that the startup is not asking for something crazy to the corporate, like, no, you know what, I just need $3 million right now. I'll call you in 6 months and tell you how I'm going. No. The corporate has an internal, validation process and stuff. And on the other side, the corporates cannot pretend to over-regulate startups or even ask for exclusivity when they're just starting their venture, right? So those that take the bigger risks right now, from the startup to the corporate and from the corporates to the startups, will be the absolute winners. And I am sure that we are just having in front of us with these two guys amazing stories around how it is a reality that corporates, institutions, venture capital, and startups can work together in different ways. But each of us understanding a role, what we can ask and what we can expect in return. So I don't know if in the audience there are founders and other corporate ventures or corporate that are exploring and trying to understand all these, but I think that it's very inspirational to hear how you managed to get all these together, because it's never easy, but the risk is not to take the risk. That is basically what we are seeing all over the place. So what about the startups? And as a last, one of my last questions. So how do you, I'm being absolutely frank, I think that we are being very polite right now, and we have to spicy things up a little bit. So what are the no-goes for you? Like, when a company reaches out to you, you say, this is by no means we're going to be working together because this is a red flag, this is a red flag, and this is a red flag. So Alvaro and Anabel, in your perspectives, what are your red flags?
Yeah, in my case, it has been a red flag when we don't started to be working together and they see a really strict contract with exclusivity, asking for IP, or putting too many restrictions to build something together or with a competitor. Then obviously when you have investment that you are investing in the company, maybe you can have forward conversations. But in an earlier stage, I had seen to put too many power inside of yourself, because I'm a big corporation and I give you this contract. If you want to work with me, you can sign it. If you don't, no, go ahead. Then in those cases, it's a really big red flag, because it means that they don't understand exactly that the relationship, as Juan Carlos said, is a mutual thing. I'm giving you impact, you are giving me knowledge, and we are exchanging things. For my case, that is a top priority. If you are putting the legal thing before than anything, then and really putting your feet and all your lawyers because you're a big corporation, usually it's itchy for me, because usually I don't see a good end of that.
Yeah, I would add on that culture can be perceived in the first conversation. And on the second and the third call, you start to validate the behavior. And those for us are the critical element to start to believe or not in the possibility of a partnership. And we always love to say internally, externally, that partnership has bring us the opportunity to learn, to expand, and to gain a value. So if it's a partnership doesn't know exactly what they want, a potential partner, or they will not take us to a new frontier, whether it is on product development or entering into a new market or expanding our existing assets, that's something that immediately will put a yellow flag or a red flag. And that's something that we don't have in a manual today, but we collectively believe on that. We have a lot of communication internally, and we need to continue to improve on that. But sometimes when you don't reach a second person or a third person within that company is when you know that that's not going to happen.
Juan Carlos, you have to give us your red flags for the startups.
I think the yellow flag or red flag, as Anabel says, it is when the I think I have identified two situations. The first one is when we are talking to a startup that don't really wants to, and believe me, we have found a startup like this. They don't really want to evolve their solution, but they want to raise money. You know, they want to raise a lot of money at the beginning. They want to increase their valuation, but they don't care about if that solution is going to evolve soon or later. You know, we don't see this immature behavior in the startup. I don't want to work with them, and I have seen several. And the other one is when the startup does not want to adapt their solution to our problems or to our customer problems, because most of the time the solution fit perfectly, even though they are in the early stage, and we need to start a process of transforming the processes internally with the help of the startup. But if they are not willing to adapt their solution to our problems or to our needs, I think that is a red flag. We don't want to work with them.
That's a great point. And from experience, we have had great some early examples of innovation within the IDB group. And I've seen how entrepreneurs like Ivan Caballero from CityBeats has adapted incredibly his solution to create civic lytics, for example, within the public side of the IDB. And I think that that says a lot about an entrepreneur, and I can agree with that criteria, Juan Carlos, from our side as well. Bueno, Laura, I think we are getting close to our
yes, Q&A.
Questions.
Yes.
So.
yes. We haven't talked anything about diversity this time because I think that we have more women in this panel than men. So I think that we can talk about it in a different way. But it's obvious that the better decisions are always the ones that have diverse perspectives. So we can go through that. So Jimena, all yours. The floor is yours. I may be able to jump in a bit, but Jimena will stay from the VentureCity team. But so all yours, Jimena.
Yes, thank you so much, Laura, for joining, and Irene for moderating as well, and all three wonderful panelists. I think this has been a super interesting conversation. I wish we had more time. We can jump in now. There have been several questions that have been coming in through the QA, so we can go ahead and ask them. And Laura, I know whenever you have to jump, just, you'll disappear. It's okay. So Irene, do you want us to jump in, or are there any last questions you have for the panelists before we ask the questions from the group?
Well, I would love to hear as a in terms of your plans. This is a question for all. Your plans. How do your plans impact underrepresented populations? For example, expansion to small countries. Laura mentioned diversity, but also expansion in terms of really having inclusion and a universal design in what you do. We care a lot about that. This is really at the heart of what we do at IDB Lab. It's innovation for inclusion and in all senses, not just diversity in terms of gender, but diversity in all senses, and an inclusive solutions from the point of view also of people with disabilities, for example. But also in terms of creating more opportunities in ecosystems that are slightly behind others, and we know that there is a big disparity in the region in that sense. So maybe a final question around that to everyone.
Yeah, if I may, I like that question very much. We are a cloud-based platform, so that gives us the opportunity to really support and enable different type of financial institutions and fintechs and challengers across different markets, but in particular, give us the opportunity to serve small countries in Central America, or help fintechs that are looking for ways to reduce the inability for many individuals to access to financial services and payment solutions, and to be able to be digitally connected and identify. As part of our partnership, I want to mention this with Visa, we co-create a solution that we call Issuance in a Box, that is being offered to many countries in Latam, and was conceived and crafted and built during the pandemic. So I think that's really important, and I welcome your question very much.
Thank you, Anabel. And by the way, congratulations again on being a finalist of We Exchange, which is another way that we're trying to build bridges to promote diversity in this space. No, and congratulations.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yeah, Alvaro?
Yeah, I totally agree. Then in our case, the expansion and going from where we are to expanding and giving our solution to more market is part of our journey. Then doing this particular work together, then with corporation, in our case, for example, has been a way to expand and do it more in a certain way. Because, for example, with the case I talked at the beginning with Telefónica, we are not only selling with them in Chile, we are in Chile, Argentina, Peru, Colombia. And then thanks to that, our expansion has been really, really good and really fast. And that usually is a good result of the way that we work with a corporation and what do you want to accomplish. As a company, I am accelerating what I'm doing in a more efficient way and getting the value from them, and also helping them to put a product in the market that gives value to their customers. And has been a really good, great journey for us.
In our case, Irene, I think it's very interesting, your question, but in our case, we might be talking about the global cement companies. We are probably the one with the highest footprint in the emerging and developing countries, and basically in Latin America. There is no other cement global company that has the same footprint as us. This is one point. The second one is we in Cemex, of course, in all of those of these countries, we have underrepresented population. Secondly, we are very standardized processes company. That means that probably what we are testing here, we are installing here in Mexico City, for example, we are going to try to replicate all over Cemex with the same, in the market with the same characteristic, of course. And that include the underrepresented countries or populations within our footprint. And another important comment regarding to that is that a big portion of our sales come from low-income people that is trying to build a house, and we have identified that these people is really struggling trying to build their own house. They don't know how to do it. They don't have anyone who help them, and they don't have the resources to afford a project, but they need it. They need it because they have families and they have changes in the family, and they need to give a house to the individuals in the family. And let me tell you about queobra.com. Queobra.com is a development that we have done it here in Cemex, in Mexico City, and they are trying to build. They're trying to. Echeverria is trying to build a digital ecosystem among the self-contractor, which is the ordinary family, the low-income family, the technician, the one who can help him, because they probably might not hire an architect to build a house, okay, and the material stores and the fintech solutions, in order to include them to a formal banking system, you know. And we are trying to do that. We are not there yet, but at this moment, in only Mexico City, we are having almost 400,000 users entering to our platform every month, which is something that is very promising to us.
Wow, I'd love to hear more about that, and can see maybe Anabel can help you on that front as well. So Jimena, and there are great questions out there, and thank you, because they do touch on some of the more critical aspects that you've been talking about, like how, like the trust issue and some other pretty important points. Let's make sure, as Laura was saying, that you know, we are as open and here as possible, because that's how we are going to make this most useful. So Jimena, please go ahead with the questions.
Of course. So again, thank you all for our panelists and moderator, and also thank you for those of you participating and asking these questions. So I'm going to ask in the order that they arrived. So thinking about from the beginning of the conversation down. So the first one is, how instrumental is it to identify entrepreneurs inside the corporate organizations? You know, those people who work for big companies but have an entrepreneurial spirit, and have a feeling that each project is their own. So I guess this is a little bit more about entrepreneurship, and maybe Juan Carlos, you might have an answer to this, or anyone really, anyone who can speak to this.
Yeah, I can answer. I think we have something that we have called smart innovation. This is an annual exercise throughout the company, where everyone in the company can post an idea and how this idea could add value to the operation or to our customers. They compete, and then we selected the best for every region. And then we select the best, the top 5, I think, the top 5 ideas in order to be implemented. The Cemex has been investing not only in direct investment into a startup stake, okay, but it has been investing also in their own development, like Echeverria, okay, and Construagil, Links, and a waste management tool that we have in Mexico also, and Construagil is in Colombia, for example, okay. But the most important point here regarding to your question is that we don't, the operator sometimes does not know that he has an opportunity to improve the way he's doing things. And we need to reach, and we need to try to take the solution that we find in the market or inside the company to them, in order to they realize that they have an alternative to better do things, you know. And this is the most difficult part, and that is why we are intensively looking for solutions in the market and within the company, in order to talk to the operators and in order to bring them to the table to discuss about the benefit of creating value through that whatever solution we are considering.
Amazing. Thank you. Anybody else have any other thoughts? Otherwise, we can jump to the next question, conscious of time. No? Okay, perfect. So the next question is, what do you think is the best way of collaboration for both parts? Do you believe in a minority investment is the best option? I think this comes from someone who's a CVC. Yes, Alvaro,
I can take that one, yeah.
Sure.
In my case, in my experience, actually, with the corporate I'm working most, it actually is an investor in my company. Then it's a good way to collaborate. If you ask, is the best and only way to collaborate? I don't agree, because when you are trying to collaborate between them, it makes sense sometimes to make investment. In particular case with Telefonica, for them it was critical case, because what they saw in us make value for them, but not only in a reselling or internal tool. They saw value for them to try to grow with us. And that case particularly was a good investment opportunity for them, because it's a strategical thing that Telefonica wanted to have inside of the portfolio thing that they want to do. But in other cases, a partnership, a reselling agreement, an IP agreement between them is a good way to collaborate. Then the answer, it depends on what the market and the particular CVC needs. Then sometimes a minority investment, it makes sense, but depend on the particular strategy of them. Then getting investment as CVCs doesn't make sense, or not all the time is going to make sure that he's going to be paying you or be a customer. It depends on the strategy. Then in my case, it's a good option if that makes sense for your particular strategy as a startup, but also if the CVC is also aligned with that. There's a bunch of other opportunities, and I explored a lot of them. Then it's a case-to-case scenario, in my experience.
If I may add, I agree with what you just said, Alvaro, but for the audience, receive and funding is always good, but you need to first be focused on what the partnership will bring to you in the immediate and long term. And focus first on on three things. If the partnership will help you to enter into a new market segment, or to your target market, or to expand to a new territory, or to advance your R&D initiative. I think those are the most critical aspect to consider in order to build a partnership. And I know if the results is good, the partner will propose to invest on you. It's like Alvaro was telling first, having a good initial affair and relationship will end in a marriage, so or some kind of a friends with benefits, some kind of that. So.
Everything that works.
So this next one I think is perhaps maybe for Alvaro or Anabel, or actually maybe Juan Carlos as well. But at what stage in your company's seed or more advanced do you start looking for corporate partners?
Yeah, it's a good question then, because sorry, Anabel, in my case, I did partnership with corporation when we were really early, in that post MVP and seed stage, and we have been done that now post Series A. Then usually I had taken better advantage of that now that I'm bigger, because I understand I have a more mature product, something more valuable to share, and sometimes a more mature conversation with the CVC. But I don't discard the other case, because in other cases you are really early and you have an idea and you have expertise, and maybe you can bring that idea expertise to work with the CVC, but with mixed results. And in my experience, at least it has been working better when you are at least post-product market fit, because you know what you have and what you are capable to do, and the corporation that can start to see value immediately, not doing all the speculative things. Then in my case, I learned is that you are not, okay, they tell you when you're going to work, they tell you that you're going to be working with Walmart, Cemex, another one, it's cool for you as a startup. But if you are going to give them value, if you have something to give a concrete thing, then usually it's a bigger stage, in my experience at least.
I just wanted to underline that I think this is a very useful rule of thumb, if you will, no, in terms of the state. So in some ways, Alvaro, what you're saying is don't go too early, because they won't be wanting to experiment with you at that stage. And then I want to tie to your earlier comment that you also don't want to experiment with them. So go with a corporate that has also done it the other way around a few times before doing it with you. So I guess it goes both ways.
Perfect. Any thoughts from you, Anabel, before we go to the next
No,
one?
I cannot agree more. I think it's, if you don't have something concrete to showcase your capabilities that could become attractive to your partner, it's not going to work on your benefit, and neither the benefits of the partner going to be a distraction for both parties. And I think that's the fundamental to really build credibility.
Which is a great segue also to the next question, which I'm going to skip over to the trust one, which is interesting. And I think Juan Carlos was alluding to this earlier about, having empathy as kind of like one of the main drivers of these relationships. But this anonymous attendee wants to know, how do you navigate trust, especially when sometimes startups don't trust corporates because they think that they're going to steal their ideas? And they mention a potential example, which we don't have to call out, but is that something that, is that a thing, right? And how do you kind of combat that feeling that startups are going to be taken advantage of? And this is for anyone, really.
Yeah, I think we have mentioned it before. The first one is to have common goals. That's the first point. At the end, we are not. This is not a one invoice situation or transaction. This is a relationship that need to transform the internal processes. So it should be long-lasting relationship. So we need common goals. And the other one is probably how to measure it. We need to measure objectively by facts in order to share the experience correctly, and in order to correct it as soon as possible and adapt it for a better fit to the needs of the company or the client.
Okay, that makes sense.
I think both parties need to do at the initial state some kind of preliminary diligence, right? And that will indicate the spirit will give you indication of the spirit of the potential partnership. If you start to perceive they're just digging in areas that is not necessarily an early stage of the conversation, you will confirm that they're just picking your brain. But if that's not the case, and you also identify that you are in a dialogue with trustworthy individuals on the other side of the question, that's a great indication that that's the right partnership to pursue, even though you need to understand that they may have multiple dialogue at the same time, that they are not, the sense of urgency is not equal, okay? But you need to be there and show the willingness to follow their agenda and persist and be attractive in any conversation that you have with them. So in many cases they're bigger than us, and they are having a parallel conversation with similar or different companies. So you need to be patient and trust in your guts and pursue what you're looking for or that relationship.
So kind of on the theme from earlier, it's kind of like the prenup before you get into the marriage, in a way. Thank you. So there's another question in the spirit of Laura's wanting to spice things up. There's a question about nightmare stories. And if anyone is willing to share, one of our participants is interested in hearing any potential nightmare stories from partnerships gone wrong that you'd be willing to share.
Well, in my case, it was not really a nightmare, but this was a big frustration. But I thought that that I had, sorry, a very good solution to our customers, and I was involved in the operation. The operation was really convinced about the value that this solution was adding to us, and I was trying to elevate the business case internally in order to have the approval to make a partnership, investing in the company, and I think I was not good trying to sell this business case. For me, it was very frustrating because I think it was a very valuable solution to us. And another case is we were trying to establish an experiment with an startup for 3D printing houses, and suddenly we read in the newspaper that this startup was agreed with another cement company. It was frustrated too, because it was not a clear communication, you know. It was a very frustrating situation.
I would add that always think in a partnership, what could affect that relationship that is not controlled by neither you or the partner. That could also affect the future of that relationship. We have suffered many of those, okay? And in particular related to governmental issues or regulatory issues that may affect the relationship. And also it is important to consider, I'm not a football player, I'm not too much a football fan, but I always use this example that don't just focus on marking a goal, but also look all the time about what's happening on the football field. Because even though you may be having a straightforward conversation with your counterpart in a company, that company is a living organization, and they may be doing different actions or taking decisions that also involuntary may affect the partnership. So read about everything about that company, follow if they're a policy trade company, check on the mailing list of all the corporate news that they have. So be informed, and sometimes be informed better than your counterpart in that company, because you can interpret what's going on the spirit and the evolution of that organization. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
Great advice.
To manage a partnership.
Alvaro, any thoughts on your end? Otherwise, we'll have one last wrap up.
Yeah, let's go to the last one.
Okay. And this is actually, I'm putting this one in here, and I invite Irene to have her say in this as well as an enabler of these two relationships. But what is one piece of advice that you have either for a founder or for a VC or a CVC that you want someone to walk away from this session with? Like, what's that one thing that you hope that remains in their minds? And we could just do a round.
Alvaro.
Alvaro, what's your one thing?
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, I think that anyone that is hearing, I think the critical thing for us is to understand that what I said before in a few times, that to find the value between us. Then this relationship only works if I'm receiving value from you as a corporation, and myself, I'm giving real value to your company. And those values are translated in something the business needs, as more customers, more efficiencies, depending on what the relationship or the nature of the relationship works. Then doing vanity things like working with corporation because it's fancy or could potentially lead an investment, as Anabel said, it's the other way around. If you are receiving value and giving value to your business, growing your business, obviously it makes sense to receive investment from them. Then here, the key things and takeaway, if you want to take something interesting for you, is to see how I can make value and receive value in a mutual way. That is the only way that, in my experience, had worked these relationships.
I will give you as an advice that not necessarily your partners are in your field. Look around in an open and interoperable world. Your best partner could be someone that you did not imagine before. So always follow the data, always follow your customer journey, and you will identify through that path the potential partners that could bring value to you, and you can bring value to them, as Alvaro mentioned, and more importantly, how can you collectively can bring value to your customers and the ecosystem in general.
Yeah, I totally agree. The value creation formula between the startup, the corporation, and the customer is really important, and it needs to be very clear how every part is going to add to that value creation. And in that matters, I think we need to every part need to assess, need to ask a lot, need to understand their counterpart each other in order to create a common process among everyone.
Well said. I would say, yes, don't fall into the tech hype. So as Alvaro said, be clear what's the value ultimately and the impact that you want to create. That's gonna take you through the ups and downs and the hard work that it takes to build these relationships and partnerships. Finally, I think embrace partnerships with an infinite mindset. It's not a soccer match, to pick on Anabel's comparison.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Really, thank you to the VentureCity team, Jimena. Thank you to the IDB Lab team, Micaela Cordero, Carolina Gutiérrez, who's here. Y muchísimas gracias, Álvaro, Anabel, y Juan Carlos. It's been great to learn from you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
No,
much.
thank you all. A pleasure to join the stage and to contribute.
Yes,
Thank
this
you.
was
Thank you for the
amazing. Thank you so much,
conversation.
everybody,
Bye-bye. Thank you.
and for joining to those online.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Muchas gracias.